Yeah, and just in other personal news, tragedy has struck my family. We went yesterday. It was a Sunday. We went out to Walmart. We were going to do Toys for Tots, drop off a toy. We needed to buy some costume stuff. Gloria's going to be in a Christmas Carol at church. And she had Glorious with her, the elf on the shelf that she loves so very much. And I remember she walked out with it. I remember that was the last time I remember seeing her. Then we drove like across the state to go to the flea market. And I don't remember what happened after that. All I know is that Glorious is no longer in the car. And
no,
we went all over the flea market looking for Glorious. And thing about losing like a stuffed animal that has like no tags on it in a flea market is like it'll just you'll lose it in the inventory. So I assume we lost it at the flea market. We've dropped off our phone number, hoping for some callbacks. But as we were kind of coming to terms with the fact that, like, okay, I think we actually lost her this time.
How did Gloria handle this? Was she devastated?
Yeah. She started, you know, you really haven't felt your heart break until you have a 6-year-old in the backseat weeping with these the most bereft tears, trying to stop herself from crying, trying to take it maturely and not being able to, and saying things like, but I went to San Diego with that doll, and I was going to bring her to Disney because we're going to Disney World next month. And I was going to put her in my memory box for when I'm a grown up. And,
oh, jeez.
Oh God. I just want to crash the car, kill all of us.
Just kill the whole family.
Yeah. I just wanted to Chris Benoit, the whole family, just to make the pain stop. That's a bad joke. So I was like, you know, I kind of kept looking to Nina, like, what do we do?
Solve this, please.
Yeah. Like, can you find it? Now people will remember that this happened about a year ago. She turned up, she was in the house in a stupid cubby that Gloria had put her in. And, so we bought a replacement. In the meanwhile, we were going to do the old switcheroo. It wouldn't have worked, it turned out, because it's a cuddly elf on the shelf. So it's not one of the hard ones. If it's brand new, it has rosy cheeks, and Gloria would have noticed that. It was the first thing she noticed. But by that point, she had already found the new doll, and she was like, who's in the mail then?
Who's in the mail then?
Because we had been saying, oh, Glorious is in the mail. And then she had two. So she said, okay, this one with rosy cheeks is called Rosie. And Rosie got tossed aside. Rosie went to just the bed and just stays in the bed. Glorious is the one with the magic. Glorious, just to take it a little bit further, she's an only child. She calls Glorious her sister, her twin sister.
Oh boy.
It's a big attachment. It was a serious loss. And so I'm realizing, like, we're out of options here. There's nothing I can do for this kid. And we drove back and forth. We went to Walmart. We did everything. We weren't giving up. And it was also pouring rain outside. So anytime we tried to, like, look in the parking lot, it's pouring rain. So you're just against the elements on this. And I was like, you're going to have to pull something out of your ass here, Dad. And I said, well, let's talk about this for a second. Glorious, the elf on the shelf doll, was just one of many, many, many dolls just like her at this Christmas store we went to last year. And it was only when you bought her and you loved her and you imagined with her that she became Glorious. I said, so couldn't you do that with any doll? Doesn't it? Aren't we talking about a soul here instead of a body? And she believed me. That's the shocker. She was like, oh yeah. I was like, I think Glorious could be in anybody. I think she could be in a troll's body.
No.
I think, yeah. I started just saying that. And she was like, yeah. And then she was like anxious to get home to see Rosie. And now Rosie has just been put in play. She is just now the new Glorious. I have now bought a new Rosie who's on the way for Friday.
That's messed up. Oh my god.
And then hopefully the other one turns up and you'll have 3.
Yeah, it's all good. I told her, I said, you know that nothing bad happens to Dad because I can always tell a story on the podcast. And she was like, that's interesting. But yeah, she's good. And then after she went to bed with it, she was cuddled with it. Everything looked normal. Everything looked nice. And it was kind of the first time Nina and I had some alone time together. And we just kind of looked at each other like with like pale white faces. I was like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "I'm a bit traumatized." She's like, I was like, "Why are you?" She's like, "Well, I feel terrible, obviously." She's like, "I also just have no idea where it is. Like, what happened?" Remember the old George Carlin joke about it was just here. Where is it?
I'm a practical guy. Where is it? I just had it. You know that feeling? It was just here.
And he used to say, he was like, I think when you die and you go to heaven, everything that you ever lost comes back to you. And I had told Gloria that joke. I was like, there's a really funny comedian. I said, he's probably the funniest comedian of all time. I told her that joke like weeks ago in advance of this. And I said, you know, he always jokes that every time you let go of a balloon in the sky, you get it back when you go to heaven.
That's the first thing that happens when you get to heaven. They give you back everything you ever lost.
And so while she was weeping, she was going, I think that comedian's right. I think I'll get to see Glorious in heaven.
Oh.
But
What happens now?
She's like, I don't want to wait that long. And I was like, well, then we're going to have to perform some what do you call it? Transubstantiation.
Yeah, we're gonna download the soul of Glorious into this vessel, into this blank vessel.
So I went home, I put on a priest collar and some demon horns because the whole thing is not good.
Oh boy.
No, I'm just kidding. But that's what happened. I'm still a little bit shaken up by it myself.
I can only imagine. I mean, well, like kids are just so good at losing things. It's in their hands,
Very talented.
and then it materializes away somehow, and you don't know how it happens.
Do you ever, with your kids, EJ, do you ever like, because you're used to taking your average human relatively seriously, do you ever make the mistake of taking your child too seriously? In other words, while we were looking for this, Gloria would say stuff like, I think I know. I'm like, what? And she's like, I think it was in the car. She'll say something utterly useless. But like for a moment, like I was like hanging on her every word. Like she was going to tell me something useful, you know?
Well, yeah, my instinct is always to treat them like, I don't know, just like any other person.
Yes.
And yeah, and occasionally, yes, they just knock me back to reality, being like, oh, wait, you're totally irrational.
This is an unreliable narrator.
There's gonna be a day where they are rational, though.
I know.
They're gonna blow you away by how rational what they said was.
It's gonna be in the other direction, yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of, you have to kind of prime the pump for like, I'm going to take you seriously someday.
I'm still in disbelief that she, of all kids, would go along with this phony theory you've concocted that the soul of. I'm sorry. It's
well, look,
so much.
You're absolutely right, but I think I have a point. First of all, which is it really was a stock doll, and it only exists in her mind because of her imagination and love.
It's too rational, though. Like that's too rational for a kid.
It's also a story. It's a story.
Okay,
and she can imagine it. You can imagine a love soul getting inserted into.
It's Christmas time, and it's we go to church and stuff. So this is not crazy. In her world, I actually, I for a moment I was like, we might have to. I was like, depending on how hard she takes the loss, we might have to like talk to like the children's pastor about this. Like, just ask him like, because it is kind of a preparation for death, a little bit. Yeah. Like it's definitely a step below like losing a pet, let's say. But it's definitely the closest thing to like a loss that she had, and of course it's replaceable, but technically not replaceable. But you're right, yeah. She went with it. There was one funny moment today where she was, New Glorious, the New Glorious brothers.
Oh my gosh, is that what she calls her? New Glorious?
No. She calls her Glorious. She's going for it. She was wrapped around her arm, and I said, "How does she like her new body?" And she looks up at me smiling. She goes, "She hates her new body."
No.
She hates the hideous scar on her head.
But we had to do it. We had to stick the little elf in another body. We're doing that now. That's sticking your children in new elf bodies.
I'm gonna stop it. Can
I tell you one quick story before we get into the main events?
Sure.
I heard, brace yourself, pucker your asshole for this one. Tim Allen is an asshole.
What?
Well,
No.
so says Casey Wilson. I don't know. I've never heard of her. Terrible ratings. Apparently she was on a podcast called Bitch Sesh, and she was in the Santa Claus's TV series. And she said, oh, he's the truly single worst experience I've ever had with a co-star ever. And I'm like, oh, this ought to be interesting. And like, the first thing I thought was, oh no. Did he do that to you?
She was like, that's so annoying. I'm
And
gonna badmouth him on a podcast and never work in this town again.
This asshole walked up to me, grunting and talking about Binford tools. Said he wanted to make a man's bathroom on a set full of women. No, I guess so. I'm like, okay, worst experience ever, total asshole. What could it be? Well, the first thing is, I guess she was stepping on his lines when they were shooting, and he went up to the executive producer and said, "You got to tell her to stop stepping on my lines." And then he went up to her and said, "Tim would ask that you stop stepping on his lines."
That sounds like I don't know.
It seems fine.
Seems like etiquette. If like you're bothered by something, you go to like the manager or whatever, and you're like, "Hey, this bothers me."
Yeah.
And then the manager sorts it out.
And they were like, "Oh, everybody was stepping on eggshells around him." But she doesn't describe how or why. And then the only other example provided was that at the end of shooting, Tim Allen shouted, "Leaving!" and took the Santa cape off and just dropped it on the floor and left.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Leaving.
Leaving. Tim. I don't think so, Tim. That was it, but she's pissed. I don't know, maybe it doesn't sound like the nicest way to conduct yourself, but he's also like the star of this thing, kind of the celebrity, I don't know, like being a little bit flippant. I'm not really shocked.
Yeah, I mean, I am not surprised that any Hollywood actor is a jerk.
And then some crew person was like, "You're seeing him on a good day." What does he normally do? He tells you to your face to stop stepping on his lines. He doesn't even have the courtesy to shout, "Leaving." Leaving. I'm gonna start doing that at work. I don't want people to bitch about me. Leaving and drop my Santa Claus outfit.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.